Hello everyone and welcome to the final round of the 4th Menorca Open tournament. Vasyl Ivanchuk, the legend, has been leading the tournament right from the start. He won all of his games except the two draws. In the penultimate round he also drew Alisher Suleimanov, the gentleman that eliminated Magnus Carlsen by wearing a watch, so to say. And yeah, this is the final round. He's facing 18-year-old Indian Grandmaster from Karaikuri, India, Pranesh. And it's a crazy game. Both players are playing to win, and yeah, it's of course both of them want to win as it's the final round. And Vasyl is also on a 26-game unbeaten streak, so he would very much love for that to continue. But let's check out the game, and then we are going to discuss a little bit more about what happens. So Pranesh with white opens with pawn to e4. Vasyl goes for the Sicilian defense, as does, pretty much everyone who wants to win a game. Knight to c3, we have pawn to e6 and knight to f3. The French, the French Sicilian, and by playing a6, Vasyl transposes into the Yerevan system of the O'Kelly Sicilian. But we have d4, and now after c captures, knight captures, and queen to c7, we are in the Khan variation of the Sicilian. Bishop to d3, and here bishop to c5. Knight to c6 and knight to f6 are the more common ideas. Bishop to c5 is like the fourth most popular continuation. Knight to b3, and now bishop back to e7. While you could play bishop to a7 to, let's say, keep it on this diagonal, queen g4 attacks g7, then bishop f4 comes with tempo. It's probably you cannot play this. Maybe you can play king f8, but other than Yanni Pomnishi, I don't see who would play something like this. But after knight b3, Vasyl goes back, bishop to e7, and still queen to g4, putting pressure on g7 and preparing bishop to f4. And the usual here is pawn to g6, and it's even the top move recommended by the engine. But Vasyl doesn't play that. He plays bishop to f6, which is very, very scary. He is threatening bishop captures on c3, but would you really give up the bishop pair to win this pawn and to weaken your dark squares? Is that really something you want to do? So let's see what happens. There are some games that have reached this position. For example, f4 has been played here. Also bishop to d2, just stopping bishop captures on c3. But Pranesh says, all right, Chucky, I want to see it. Are you really giving up your dark square bishop? Bishop to f4, attacking the queen on c7. And Vasyl does exactly that. He plays bishop captures on c3 with check, king captures, and queen captures on c3. And here, look at the situation on the clock. An hour and 23 minutes, both of them. So they're pretty much blitzing out moves, up until this point. But here we have king to f1, and you can see there was, almost a 10-minute think, 9-minute think for this king to f1 move. And it's hard to say what the reason behind this is. Once you see white's next move, you will understand the reason. But also, it's hard to say anything wrong about bishop back to d2. He would have to move the queen, and now you play pawn to f4, you castle kingside. Later on, you somehow get your bishop, to control this diagonal, and you enjoy your advantage of the bishop pair over the course of the hopefully a very long game. But after queen captures on c3, Pranesh played king to f1. And okay, we have knight to c6, and look at Ivanchuk's time, an hour and 23 minutes. He plays knight to c6, and now it's 46 minutes. So it's a 37-minute thing for this knight to c6 move. I think probably amongst other things, because who knows how far Chucky calculates, he was maybe worried about this pawn to e5 move that cuts off the queen from defending g7, and then after, let's say, knight g to e7, queen captures on g7, rook to g8, queen captures on h7. But if you're a French player, and Chucky sometimes does play the French, if you play the winner or against the winner variation, you're no stranger to giving up the g and the h pawn like this. So it can be played something like knight captures on e5, h4, white gets the advances past h pawn. So definitely something that can be played. But after 37 minutes, Chucky says, nope, I'm not playing that. Or rather, no, he plays that, but Pranesh says that he's not interested in that. He plays bishop to d6. And okay, obviously the e5, although it is the top moves recommended by the engine. Bishop to d6 definitely makes more sense, and it also tells us why he decided against bishop to d2. He wanted to have the option of going bishop to d6. Okay, pawn to h5. Trying to chase away the queen, also not having to worry about g7 is definitely something that black would enjoy. Queen to g5. Now, well, okay, for the moment the knights are defending that e7 square, but if the knights move, this is just checkmate. So queen to f6. Vasyl says, thank you for the pawn, let's trade queens. Of course, Pranesh says no thank you, but this is one of those moments where you have to, you know, summon your inner Alpha Zero and just play pawn to h4. Not because Alpha Zero pushes the h pawn, but because you cannot really trade queens here. If you trade queens here, black is really stuck. All of black's pieces are in pretty bad squares, and it's not gonna be easy playing this. White has a really huge positional advantage here. So, you know, h4, a queen trade, even though you're down a pawn, would actually go a long way for Pranesh. But he played queen to c5, which also makes sense, but he gives Vasyl one move that really allows him to get back into the game. Because what is black's you know, biggest problem in the position? Of course, the light square bishop there, you know, the light square pawn basically on c8. So how do you deal with this? Have at it. Feel free to pause the video and, you know, try to figure out what Chucky played while I give you a couple of seconds. So the move he played, of course, is pawn to e5. And the reason for this is that you can play pawn to b6 without worrying about queen captures on b6, as now the bishop here would hang due to the queen on f6. So how do you deal with this? Pranesh finds the best possible idea, knight to d2, and the hardest move to find is often with the knight back. The knight is coming to c4, will add more support to the bishop and also will put pressure on e5. Pawn to b6, now trying to chase away the queen from the defense of the bishop. Queen a3 and rook to h6 attacks the bishop on d6. We have knight to c4 defending, and pawn to b5 inviting knight to b6, and Vasyl wants to give up the rook on a8 for for some epic counterplay. We have knight to b6 and queen captures on d6. Queen captures, we have rook captures on d6, and knight captures on a8. And now Vasyl plays knight to b4, where there are two possible ways for white to continue the game. Everything else pretty much loses. And you could decide to save your knight with knight to c7, or you could decide to give up the knight. It's also possible. In the game, knight to c7 check was played, which is not perhaps the best way to continue. It's actually best to just give up the knight, but it's, you know, something that very few people would decide. The idea is that after bishop b7 and captures on b5, bishop captures on a8, you also capture on a6, and now after, let's say, knight captures on d3, you win another pawn. King to e2, the rook is coming to b1, maybe to b8, the pawn starts marching forward. Yes, it's two pieces for a rook, but the passed a pawn is looking incredibly scary. So that is the idea here. And also, if bishop captures on e4, just defending the rook, f3, and now, of course, the bishop has to go here, and now a7, you also just lose on the spot. So it's very tricky. But okay, in the game, Pranesh decided to save the piece. He played knight to c7 check, king to d8, we have knight to d5, and now Vasyl plays knight captures on d3. It's actually perfectly fine to go this way or this way. He decides to capture the bishop, c captures and the bishop to b7. Attacks the knight, and now pawn to a4. We have bishop captures on d5, e captures on d5, and pawn to b4. Vasyl creates a passed b pawn, d4, and now pawn to e4. Just keeping the tension and maintaining these two pawns as a long-term target where he can just gobble them up. We have king to e2, knight to e7, and now rook h to c1. And it's a dreadful position for white. It's almost impossible to find a defensive resource here. I think Pranesh was also playing a little bit on Vasyl's time. He's down to 6 minutes. Pranesh is down to 35. Yeah, finding a solution here, I mean, you could easily burn 30 minutes. I will show it to you, but it's f3, I mean, and then after e captures and king captures, okay, you're gonna give up a pawn, and then king e4. You get your king up there, you attack the knight, And now you also defend this pawn once the knight moves, so you kind of slow down black's play, and then you go rook h to f1, and well, you adapt to what white plays, and it's not pleasant, but it's the only way to play. However, in the game, rook h to c1 was played, and now Vasyl plays knight captures on d5, rook to c5, and knight to c3 check, king e3, rook to c6. He offers a rook trade, and it means that it will be knight versus rook, but Vasyl will be up 2 pawns. So, okay, rook captures, pawn captures, and king to d2. We have pawn to a5. And this is now the position. 7 pawns versus 5 pawns. Vasyl's knight versus Pranesh's rook on a1. We have king to c2. King to d7, we have king to b3, king to d6, king to c4, and pawn to f5. We have g3, pawn to g5, and rook to e1 now. So what do you play? It's definitely a difficult position to spot. Interestingly, you can capture on a4, but with so little time on the clock, Vasyl decides to improve his position rather than go pawn hunting. Rook d5, we have king to b3, and now knight back to c3. We have king to c4, and now, again, you should just capture on a4. The idea is that he was probably worried, he was down to 41 seconds, so he was probably worried about rook to a1. But you can easily play knight b2 check, and after, okay, king b3, first you avoid check, knight to d3, rook captures on a5, and now it seems like, okay, we're going to capture on f2, he's going to capture on f5, but f4 just wins the game. That's it, e3 is coming, and there's no way for the rook to do anything, as the knight is on d3, covering the queening square. That's pretty much it, not much to do here. If you go king to c4, then you go after the f2 pawn, and if, of course, just rook captures on g5, then you just play e3, and after captures, there's no stopping the pawn. If king c2, you can even just play e2 because, well, a knight is worth queening the pawn. So after king to c4, pawn to g4 was played. This is not the most precise way to play, as you were hoping for f4 and e3. By playing g4, Vasyl gives up all of the advantage, but that is the downside of always playing with 1 minute on the clock, and Vasyl's been playing the entire tournament. After the first, let's say, 20 moves, he was down to 1 minute on the clock, and obviously that is the secret to his success. We have rook to h1, knight to d5, and now pawn to h3. Knight to b6 check, king to b3, and g captures on h3. Rook captures king to d5, and rook captures on h5. King captures on d4, and now even rook to h6, and all of a sudden, Vasyl is now even lost. Objectively, he is lost here. But, that's a funny thing to say in chess, and you'll see what I mean by this. You guys will also have an opportunity to win this game. It's not going to be easy. King to d5, okay, he defends the c6 pawn. Rook to f6, we have knight to c4, and the rook captures on f5 check. Knight to e5, we have pawn to g4 as the knight is pinned, so of course Pranesh starts advancing his past g-pawn. c5, c4 coming with tempo, g5, c4 check, and this is the question. You are Pranesh here. You are playing against the legend Vasyl Ivanchuk. There are 3 possible moves here: a2, b2, and c2. One of them loses, one of them wins, and one of them draws. I mean, it's as if we were making a movie about a chess game, but it is, the way it is. What would you play here? You have a2, b2, and c2. You have 27 minutes on the clock, so it's not, that scary. But what do you play here? The move that wins the game for Pranesh is king to b2, and it's it's not easy, especially because king to b2, you're worried about knight when you move the king, knight to d3 coming with check. It really looks scary. Interestingly, king to a2 is a draw, and king to c2 just loses the game on the spot, and king to c2 was played. I will show you why king to b2 is winning. And it's really weird. Okay, you unpin, you're ready to go knight to d3 check. Now, let's say rook to f8, and you can go further. Because if you go knight to d3, then the king will not be able to enter the game. So, okay, king d3, rook to d8 with check. You go king to e2, looks awesome. Black is, winning. But rook to e8. and this is now a problem. What do you play here? If you go c3 check, just king c2, there's no follow-up here. And if you go knight to d3 check, king to c2, and what now? There's no good way to play this. You can give one check, knight to e1 check, king to b1, and this pawn is either falling, or you can defend it with something like king to d3, but it doesn't really make sense, just g6, and this pawn is queening much faster than any of the other pawns. If pawn to c3, you can even play g7, or you can kick away the king, let's say g7, you can play c2 with check, but after king c1, there's a king on d3, there's no check, and once you prepare it, of course, rook to c8 with check, and once the king moves, now you just queen, and that's, you know, a problem. And even if you go king to c3, also g8 queen, and now after knight, no, queen g8 comes with check, so yeah, that's, I missed that, sorry guys. But yeah, if you go here, you mess up with, you know, the knight's squares, so the knight cannot deliver a check, and if you go to b3, then queen comes with check, so that is the issue here, and that is why king to b2 has to be played. But king to c2 was played, which seems like it makes a lot more sense because knight to d3 does not come with check. But now look at this, king to d4, and okay, we in the other line we discussed the rook to f8, rook to f6 is basically the same. It goes after the king via the d6 square, and now b3 with check. We have king to b2, and now knight to d3 with check. So the knight still comes in with check. King to a3, and now king to c3, and this is now much different, as the rook cannot go after the king on the c file. Rook to h6, we have pawn to b2, and here rook to h1, stopping b1 queen, but it doesn't matter, just knight to c1, and he was in this position on move 55 that Pranesh resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. You can give another check, let's say rook h3 check, king to c2, and now g6, but black doesn't even need a queen. Black can just bring a knight into the game, and this will come with checkmate. So yeah, scary game. Vasyl played brilliantly. As usual, he won all of his games with the black pieces. This tournament, the only two draws that he had were with the white pieces. And yeah, he messed up with that g4 move, but, you know, playing constantly with a minute on the clock, you just, you know, your opponent surprises you. You just don't have time to calculate everything. But yeah, Vasyl wins in the final round with the black pieces against Pranesh. He wins the tournament with 8 out of 9s. That's 7 wins, 2 draws. He wins the 4th Menorca Open tournament. And just in this one tournament, he won 22.1 rating points. And this entire month, as we've already discussed, he played in 3 tournaments. He was undefeated in all of them. I think this is his 27th game without a loss. So that is absolutely amazing. And this entire month, he won almost 40 rating points, 39.7. And he will come out with almost 2650 on the next rating list, which comes out in 4 days. So yeah, it was, you know, I mean, he is such an incredible player. It's hard watching him with a rating of 2600, which is not a little, you know, now that the rating inflation is basically over, with, you know, some 26 tenure in the top 100 players in the world. So it's not that bad, but still, you know, Vasyl is much better than that. Now, currently on the live rating list, he's world number 82. He regained his spot in the top 100, I think, 2 days ago. And yeah, amazing stuff happening for Vasyl. You know, I'm hoping he has another great month, and then, you know, maybe we see him back at 2700, where we know he belongs in the 2800 club. You know, on a good day, even in a 2900 club. But let's at least, you know, get him to 2700. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and this short Vasyl saga, but probably, you know, the way he's playing, we're gonna have a lot of Vasyl sagas, so stay tuned for that. I would like to thank the Animated Chemist, Crash BPS1, Magician Chess, Sandal No Last, and Ivanchuk for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your Sunday.